You're listening to Spiritual Growth Tools on the radio, helping you understand the blocks you have in your life to being happy, with a wide variety of guests to help you better understand the problems you're having in your own life. Whether you're depressed, poverty-stricken, suffering ill health, or confused about how to take the next step, discover products, services, and information that will enable you to grow with grace and address issues that are preventing you from happiness, health, or abundance. Go to spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk and find out what's holding you back.
Well, hello everyone, and you are listening to Spiritual Growth Tools on the radio, where we discuss spiritual growth, what that means, and how it can help you to move forward through the blocks that you have to health and happiness. I'm your host, Caroline Nettle, and today's guest is Shoshanna French. Welcome, Shoshanna. So pleased to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so very welcome. Okay, so for my listeners who've not heard of Shoshanna, she is a world-renowned psychic. I got introduced to her on a high recommendation from a top internet marketer. So, of course, I absolutely knew I had to have her on the show. So here she is, and I'm thrilled that she's on tonight. And we're going to be exploring the subject of living intuitively and how that can empower you to make better decisions to help your life move forward. So, with that, Shoshanna, I think, what is your opinion of why being intuitive helps your life?
Well, I think actually being intuitive is very natural. I think it's a natural state of connection with ourselves, connection with the divine, connection with others. And when you are living in that sort of flow state of connection, it just brings a whole bunch of ease to your life.
So true, so true. And is it something you've always been intuitive, or is it something you've learned recently, or?
Well, when I was really young, when I was, like 7 or 8 years old, I had all kinds of experiences that didn't make any sense to anybody else, but totally made sense to me, a 7 or 8 year old. I would know when people were sad, not because because they would tell me they were sad, but because I would see this like shadow over people's face. I knew they were sad. I had dreams that came true when I was 7. In the church we were in, they baptized you, and I had this conversation with God. And so I didn't know that was intuition. I didn't know that any of that was different or unusual than anybody else. When I was 7 or 8, it wasn't until I was a little bit older and I started to share some of these experiences, and various people were like, well, that's kind of strange, that I realized that maybe I might be a little bit different. And it wasn't until I was in college, when I was, 17 or 18 years old, that I was introduced to these amazing women that at that time seemed they were my grandmother's age, like in their mid to late 50s and 60s at that time. And they introduced me to the world of metaphysics and intuition and channeled lessons and, conversations with God, and so many different books. I think I read 40 or 50 books they gave me, and they taught me how to meditate, and they gave me the word psychic, which is not a word I knew before then. Mm-hmm. A lot of the spiritual teachings I had prior to meeting all of them had intuition or psychic phenomenon as sort of a, negative connotation. Yeah. People who swindle people or are trying to lead you the wrong way or astray. But these women taught me that this was a gift I had, and that a gift that I should develop and understand and use. And so I spent, the next 20 years developing, understanding, exploring those gifts. And really in the last 7 or 8 years, I've begun to understand that everybody has those gifts. Everybody does. And all of our gifts are unique. They're unique to us, unique to, however you want to say it, our imprint from God. And so I really believe that anyone, and I can give you lots of examples, but anybody could be taught how to recognize, trust, and follow what their intuition is saying, no matter what.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what a blessing you had those ladies in your life.
Total blessing.
Have you heard my story? Because it's actually really funny. It's a little bit sad, but so I was 4 years old in a really old-fashioned British church, and they're quite daunting, some of them. This was, it's real cold, old. And I stood behind this woman, and I told her that her husband was going to die. And my mother I don't think she'd ever thumped me. She thumped me. You do not say that sort of thing in church. Well, the problem was he did die the following week. But because I'd been sort of, shall we say, shamed in a public place, I don't think I had those words when I was 4, but I just thought, oh, what I did was wrong. So I then spent the next 20, I think I didn't really explore my psychic abilities or my spirituality or anything like that until I was well into my 30s. Although if I look back at my travels that I'd done in my 20s, a lot of the time I was going to Machu Picchu and Teotihuacan and all these really important spiritual sites. So it's not like I wasn't unconsciously aware of perhaps the gift that I've been working hard in my lifetime to improve and stuff. But yeah, I walked into a psychic circle in Reading where I used to live, and this woman was like, well, I don't think you need to be here. And I was like, what do you mean? I've come to see whether or not I can do this thing that you're all talking about. So yeah, so I think I've been really psychic all my life, but unfortunately for me, I shut it down. Well, maybe that was the right thing. Who knows, what our life path is, but yeah, so for me, it's been a question of forgetting that you can get in trouble for what you say and that not everybody wants to hear it, obviously. That's something I struggle with a little bit, because here I am off with the angels getting the messages really clearly, and then I open my eyes and someone in front of me is like crying or or questioning what I'm saying, and often I think that's just they use me and my talents like Spirit use you and your talents for the people that come to me. I'm raveling. Okay.
No, I mean, I think that people relate sometimes. People relate like there's something unique or special about us as people who've chosen this as the way that we are making money in the world.
Yeah.
That like there's something special or unique about us as psychics or people who do such things, when in fact I have found, I mean, I worked with for those that listen to your program who are in the UK, in the US, football is a big thing, and I worked with an NFL coach, and for him to really trust and follow his own intuition for his career choice and what he was going to do. And he's this, I mean, you meet him, he's this big guy. He was a defensive linebacker, which is the guys that make sure that no one gets to the end zone. And his hands were like hams. He's the biggest guy I've ever seen. And he got it. I mean, he got it. I've worked with, millionaire, multimillionaire business owners. I've worked with, just a mom with children and teachers and a PhD psychologist and just a whole bunch of different people. And mostly what I say is that I'm not teaching people how to do something. I'm reminding them of something they already knew. So it's really just it's a process of remembering. Because we all, I mean, when we're children, we're very intuitive. When we're hungry, we eat. When we're tired, we go to sleep. When we're sad, we cry. When we're angry, we have a little temper tantrum. Like, it's all very natural. And depending on the age, like for you, it was 4. For me, it was 8, where we're told to not be intuitive anymore, whether because it was strange or someone didn't like what we had to say or whatever it was. But I think people can be returned to that. So the things I say about living intuitively is, yes, it is part about intuition, which is something that you can be trained to and learn how to develop. But also, it's also about, I call it the 3 keys. So key 1 is the practice of being present. Mm-hmm. And that takes practice, as you know, because like you said, you close your eyes, you connect, you get messages, and then you look across the way and the person that you're reading with is crying. And you're like, what happened? So that there's something about being able to be fully and completely present, and that takes practice. Mm-hmm. And then the second key is being grateful, because when you're in the space of gratitude, I think it's so much easier to hear messages from our guides, from what our body is communicating to us. And then the third key is being connected, which is all about recognition and practicing and understanding how our unique intuition works. So it's pretty amazing to me, all the different kinds of people that I've worked with over the years who have been interested for different reasons and learning how to use their intuition. Some people it's to further their career, and for some it was to be better understanding of their children and better parents. For others, it was to be able to understand what their partner's thinking. People ask my husband all the time, must be hard being married to a psychic, because she knows everything you're thinking. And I always think it's funny when people say that, because the truth is, even being in, Carolyn, even being intuitive, I still don't know what he's thinking all the time.
No. But it is fun when you're standing beside someone and they're waxing lyrical about something and you're just getting a big hit that actually they don't think that way, or actually what they need to be doing is looking at their health. You know what I mean? There's just sometimes people are really I call it grandstanding, when they're like, look at me, I'm blah, and you're getting this hit that perhaps something else is going on, or so that always makes me chuckle, but because we humans are quite silly, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
But I think one of the best things that I ever did to tune into my intuition, because of course I had a massive critical voice in my head that said, you can't do this, this is rubbish, why are you going to say that out loud, what an idiot you're going to look. But I mean, full time, this person was paid up. And so for me, it was just about getting into my body and getting connected with what my stomach was saying, or how my heart felt when I listened to those words, or how, you know what I mean? It was a real body thing for me, and I wasn't in my body at all. So which might sound a bit strange to some people, but I was really disconnected from my body. And then it was just a question of testing myself. For example, when you train with Doreen Virtue, in those days you needed to do 50 angel readings. And I had to do some of them over the email. And I was living in, Kentucky at the time. I was working in a treatment center. So I picked my kindest friends, the ones that would say yes to a free angel reading. Of course, most people do. But the ones that would not mind if I got it wrong. And one of them, she told me she'd stop drinking. And the message from the angels was, I think a little bit less red wine would be good for you. And I'm like, I can't say that. She told me she stops drinking. But I did. I had the courage. I said, okay, dear so-and-so, the angels are telling you not to drink quite so much red wine. She went, busted. And it was really good for me to do that with someone that I really loved and trusted, because then it gave me the confidence to just, okay, sometimes I get messages that Caroline, don't agree with, but it's not about me. It's about this person who needs to hear what the angels want to say to them. And I think that was really good for me too. Mm-hmm.
Well, anybody who's either listening to this on YouTube or on your website afterwards, I think that you could hear you and I talking a bit about doing readings for others and think that maybe this doesn't apply to just the regular person. And I would tell you that everybody has had the experience where you get in the car and you get somewhere and you don't actually remember the point at which you got in the car and then how you arrived.
Yeah.
That whole space is gone. And what the very, very first step when I tell people the practice of being present, because mostly, I don't care where you live in the world, it's really, really easy to be distracted by all that there is to do or the things that are around you. So a really, really good practice that that was recommended to me many years ago, and one that I now recommend to my clients, is the practice of just noticing what you notice. And I do it myself when I notice, I look like exactly what you just said, which is not being in your body. It's not all that odd. If people thought about it for a minute, it's often that we do things like, it makes me think actually of my sister-in-law. Her snow boots were kind of uncomfortable when she put them on, and she went skiing all day, and she was so not thinking about her body that at the end of the day, her toe was all black and blue, like she had broken her toe, but never noticed because she was thinking about other things, was not present to what was happening. And we do, for sure, I think all of us do that more often than we realize, not be present in our body. So the actual act and practice of noticing what you notice. So for people listening to this, what that actually looks like is you can be, no matter where you are right in this moment as you're listening to this, you could be sitting in your office, for example, listening to this, streaming on your computer, and you could keep listening to this and start looking around the room.
Yeah.
And just notice what you notice. Notice where your feet are, if they're on the ground. Notice what's above you. You might even notice that, there's a little piece of paint that's coming loose. You might notice that your pictures are a little askew. You might notice the beautiful color of flowers that you didn't even notice outside your window that are beginning to bloom. You might begin to notice that your body feels uncomfortable. Maybe your pants are too tight or the shirt you're wearing is itchy. You might notice the room feels too warm or too cool. The idea is to just allow yourself to notice, be like a scientist and notice what you notice. And what happens is our intuition can talk to us sometimes really, really loud, but sometimes our intuition is communicating with us really subtly, really, really quietly. And the only way that we can hear the answer, and for some of us we hear it, for some of us we see stuff, for some of us we know something all of a sudden, we just have a random thought, it seems like, or sometimes we feel stuff in our body. No matter how it is that you get your intuitive messages, your body, your intuition is talking to you, but you can certainly hear it when you are more present. Whatever that subtle message is that you're getting when you're more present, you're able to get it. And that's why that's the first step. First step is be present. And I know, and for anybody who listens to our readers, certainly it takes something to be present to do readings as well, especially if you're in a public place like a pub or if you're at a party or whatever the case may be. That takes even more practice.
Really does. And I just never thought I would be able to do that, but like you say, it's just practice. But as you were talking, then I was just thinking of all the ways that we don't stay present. I drink coffee because I'm tired. I'll, stay up later than my body wants because this film or this book's really good. I'll go with that person even though I'm getting a kind of a hunch in my stomach that perhaps I shouldn't. You know what I mean? We just ignore our body all day, every day. And I mean, the amount of rubbish food that we eat and these, what are they called? The drinks that, caffeine-fueled drinks and stuff. It's just all ways of getting out of your body. And I think, a lot of intuitive hits come when, exactly what you say, when you're present and in your body. You know what I'm thinking? We sat there and said that people could call in, and I perhaps need to give them the number. So, okay, this is a US number, so if you're outside the United States, you need to put 001 on the front. And then to call in and ask myself or Shoshana a question, we're happy to answer your questions. It's 347-327-9223. So from outside the US, it's 001-347-327-9223. I do believe you can call in on Skype as well. So if anybody wants to ask any questions of us, we are here. Okay.
We would be delighted to answer your question.
We would. Please do. Okay, so what is your favorite bit of working with people and their intuition then? What gives you the most pleasure?
Probably just shortly after every person has sort of begin to understand what their unique intuitive gifts are, because all of our gifts are a little bit different, whether we, like I said, whether we hear messages or we see things in dreams or see something in our mind's eye or we feel something in our body or we just know something. Once people start to kind of have a hang on that, which is all the beginning part, then we get to really play. And what I call listening, like asking questions and listening for answers. And then we get to play with a whole bunch of tools, because there are so many different kinds of tools that really work for every unique person. And what I mean specifically are the obvious ones we talk about, like tarot cards are a great tool for certain kinds of intuitives. There's pendulum, there's runes, there is, automatic writing. But one of my very favorite, which works really well with certain intuitive types and certain ones not as well, I call it the psychic multiple choice. And if you're listening, it's a really fun thing to practice. So I'm going to explain it, because that way you could listen to this and practice it there on your own, wherever you are, listening to this great radio program that Carolyn is hosting. So this is, what you do is you take a piece of paper and you break it into 3 separate pieces of paper. You just fold it in 3, and you think of a question, just one question. So I used this one time myself. I had a car that was kind of falling apart, and I knew intuitively, like in my gut, that I had to get rid of this car, but I didn't know the right timing of everything for when to get another car. So I thought I would practice this psychic multiple choice to see when the best timing was. So the question I asked in my mind is, when is the best time to go ahead and get a new car? And then on each one of those separate pieces of paper, I thought of, like A, B, and C, I thought of 3 different answers. So on each piece of paper went one individual answer. So first answer was, get it before Thanksgiving. The second answer was, get it after Thanksgiving but before Christmas. And then the third different answer was sometime after Christmas. Doesn't really matter. And then you take those 3 pieces of paper and you flip them over so you can't see the answers now. And you do a little mix around so that you don't know which answer's on which piece of paper. And then you engage with 2 parts of your intuition. One is something people call psychometry, which is the reading of an object. So you pick the piece of paper up in your hand, you put your other hand over the top of it, and then you ask your question again. So for me, it was, when's the best time to, get a car, get this new car? And when holding whatever piece of paper that was, I didn't know what the answer was. I heard bad timing. And so I just wrote bad timing and put that aside. And then I picked up the next piece of paper and asked the question again. I went through each one. And then at the end, the really fun part, and I think this is really, I think it's because it occurs a bit like magic, and it always surprises people, is you flip the paper over to see what each answer was, A, B, and C. So under, that first answer, which was before Thanksgiving, when I flipped it over, it just said bad timing.
Mm-hmm.
When I flipped the second answer over, which was, sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and this is all very mundane, by the way, anybody listening, you can use your intuition for really deep spiritual things or very mundane. I happen to use it quite often for avoiding traffic, but, that's just me. So besides working with clients, I use it for really mundane, very useful things. Second answer, which was, sometime after Thanksgiving, before Christmas, it said something like good second auction. And then I flipped the third one over and it said perfect timing. That's what I'd written on the back, and it was sometime after Christmas. So I used that. It was pretty clear information. I still had some choice after that, like, sometime after Thanksgiving, between now and then. That works. That's what my guidance is saying. And I have taught, probably 30 or 40 people how to do psychic multiple choice. And like I said, depending on how people's intuition works, it works really well. There's something about it that disengages our logic brain.
Mm-hmm.
And just has us really connect in that moment and just connect to source, connect to spirit, write down what we get, and then like magic, we flip it over and it's like, oh. But the thing I always say is after you do that the first time, if you're still not sure, do it again. Keep asking different questions.
Thinking, but all those people that are like, yeah, but I don't believe what I get, which was me entirely for quite a few years. In fact, that's a fabulous game.
It is.
It's a fabulous game. Can I tell you what? I used to have this. We've moved apart because I moved away. But anyway, she was a really good friend of mine. She was really psychic, and we'd play. It's a slightly different game in that you would think of a question, and I would tell you the answer without knowing the question. And I love that game. It's so fun. so fun. You've got no idea what the question is, and you literally have to say what comes into your head. And I loved playing that. In fact, we played it often because it's just so much fun. But I like the idea of multi-choice. That's a good one too.
And there's something about it where people are like, oh, I've done multiple choice. It seems to take all the pressure off. I do like that one. I mean, there's in teaching so many different kinds of people like I've been for the last 8 years, it's kind of fun to find the tools that people really like. The other one that I would say my second favorite thing when I train with people is I have a huge love for stones, for crystals. Yeah. Just the connection and the power of them. Besides just their physical beauty, I love them a lot. And so the thing that I have people do is it's a 6-month program that I teach called Mastering Intuition, where we go through my 5 steps of learning to use your intuition. But somewhere in there is the learning how to listen, ask questions and listen for answers. And so we use connection to stones for that. So the assignment I give people is I have a whole bunch of stones in my office. So if they're in person, we choose one. If they're not in person, I tell them to go to a stone store and close their eyes and just see where they're drawn, what stone they're drawn to. And then they carry this stone with them everywhere for a month, in their purse, in their brassiere, whatever, in their pocket, with them everywhere, every day for 30 days. And the idea is to ask questions, but using the stone, to feed answers. So, what kind of energy what messages do you have for me? Why did we choose each other? And it's really fun. I had a client once who was really just drawn to the stone in my office. It's called carnelian. It's this really beautiful, kind of brilliant orange-colored stone. And it was quite a large stone. It was about the size of a baseball. It was a gift from a friend, and he was really drawn to it. So I gave it to him, and his name was Willie, and he was with it for a whole month. And, he was like, well, the message, when I asked the question, the message was something like to have me listen and trust myself. And so that's what he spent the month meditating with the stone about, listening and trusting myself. Well, little did the both of us know, and this is kind of the fun way that stones work, is that carnelian also connects to the second chakra, which is all about emotional healing. And for himself, there was all this old stuff he didn't even realize about marriage, because his parents had been divorced, and being a good husband and father. And he was, in love with this woman, but they weren't engaged yet. So he had the stone for a whole month, and at the end of the month he came, and they were engaged.
Oh, that's a good story.
Yeah, isn't that fun? Like, we don't know what the possibility of healing is when we connect to stones. So I would say those two: psychic multiple choice and connecting with stones. Those are my two favorite exercises that I give to clients.
I love that one. I love crystals. I'm always really drawn to them. And people say, do you know their names? And I'm like, not even a little bit. But I just go the ones that I want to, I pick up the ones I want for the day, and I don't know why, and that's okay with me. I don't need to know, but yeah, no, I do.
Any of your listeners who love stones but don't know names of stones, or are given the name of a stone but don't exactly know what it means, there's this great book called Love is in the Earth. It's like this big, ginormous purple book, and it has really great information about metaphysical uses for stones, and just like physiological as well as energetic. I really love that book.
Thank you for recommending that. I will.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I know I'll buy it and not read it. That's the funny thing about it. Because I actually quite like the fact that I don't know, because I wouldn't want to choose them because of logic. Does that make sense to you? I like what I'm drawn to, which infuriates a lot of people. I know it does, but I can't change.
I think we just use it as a point of reference at the end after the month, and people I don't tell them what the stone is, and they don't know what the stone is, and at the end of the month they tell me all the things that happened. Then we pull the book out and I read it, and they're like, oh.
I guess. No, that's a really, really, really good idea. And actually, that's a good idea, because is it okay if I talk about, well, it's my show, I can talk about it.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. No, intuition, it's huge for me this year. It's really, changed my life, because I actually listened. And, we've been talking for a while now, and the end of the last year was the end of the year of the snake, and I was definitely getting rid of lots and lots of skins, and which is great. I was letting go of the past, which is what I needed to do. And I get this deep masculine voice in my head the day the year of the horse started. And horses to me always signify freedom and wide open spaces and, no responsibility and all that fun stuff. And I just heard this deep, godlike voice, sort of Darth Vader-ish, saying to me, I was posting on Facebook and yet another thing saying, we're all going to hell in a handbasket because of Fukushima, or, they're chopping down all the forest, which I realised wasn't that effective, but I couldn't stop, if that makes any sense. And I just heard this voice saying, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, oh, good question. Thanks very much. I'll percolate that a little bit. So I spent 2 days, literally, 2, maybe 3 days. What am I going to do? That's a brilliant question. Now, I think if it had happened last year, I'd have just said, leave me alone, please don't bother me. But I was really ready, so it was like, I want to plant trees is what bubbled up through the, layers. And I was like, wow, I wouldn't, if you'd have asked me in December, what do you want to do? I don't think I would have said planting trees. But here I am now with my big project of planting 1 million trees in Africa. which all started with a question that I could quite easily have ignored, which was, well, what are you going to do about it? So, yeah, I'm thrilled that I listened, because suddenly things are flowing towards me. It's really strange, you know. I've been having a bit of an uphill struggle, and suddenly people are coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so, or, you know, I'll promote that for you, or can I give you some money, or what do you need? That's one of my life's questions, is what do I need, you know? And so, yeah, I've finally started listening to my intuition, and they've given me this huge project, and I'm thrilled, because, you know, it just feels like it's what I was doing for the rest of my life, was working up to this. But yeah, I'm going to need a lot of help. I've spoken to you about it, Shoshanna, haven't we? And we're going to see if we can't do a bit of work together, which is really exciting. But yeah, I thoroughly recommend people listen to the questions in their head, unless, of course, it's a mean, nasty, horrible question that's like, what do you think you're doing? Don't be stupid. No one wants to listen to you. That kind of critical. Then you need to find a way to get rid of that, because mine was super, super loud. And I have hushed it now, and I have the courage now to listen to what I'm receiving. But that was a real challenge for me. How do you help people with that, Shoshanna?
So great. What a great question. I just want to say first, because it is what feels right to say first, which is it takes courage to listen to intuition sometimes when our logic is telling us something different. So I just really acknowledge you first, Carolyn, for just listening to what I would say, listening to the call of your soul, the call of your spirit, the call of spirit calling you into being who you're supposed to be, like your purpose. So I just really, it takes a lot of courage. I want to acknowledge you first for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. So how do I help people with, ask me the question again. I was so distracted by I was just so moved by your courage that I got distracted by I couldn't remember your question is.
Okay, I'll tell a little story and I'll end with the question. So the way I am is a little bit bonkers. And when I got to Hawaii, they said the only thing you shouldn't do, I don't like the word should, is go up on the volcano and talk to Pele, unless you really want something shifting. So I stormed up the volcano, took my shoes off, stood there and went, right, I am so sick of not believing in myself. Whatever gets in my way of, blah, 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 I want it gone by the end of this week. Oh my God, is what I can say. I had the most challenging, difficult, painful, dreadful week of my life. I mean, it was wonderful too, because obviously I was learning how to, speak to the angels. But by the end of it, I was like, yeah, I can hear what the angels are saying, and I can give it in a loving, kind way for other people. So my way isn't necessarily the best way. My question to you was, when people are really stuck in that critical, all they can hear is the critical voice in their head, because I think you do have to get over that in order to be able to really listen to what's actually being said instead of what the ego is saying to you. So my question was, how do you help people when they're stuck in that critical voice?
Well, a couple different things. So when people are stuck in that inner tape recorder, as I like to call it, but there are people who don't even know what tape recorders are, like my nephew's 13, by the way. But for the people who know what tape recorders are, when you have that internal tape recorder playing sort of the negative self-talk over and over again, a little bit like what you said, which is should or shouldn't, the thing that I find is not trying to silence that voice, but instead turning up the volume on another voice.
Okay.
And so what I say is that the second key in living more intuitively is the key of being grateful. And it's so easy to be focused on the things, I call it the gap between where we are right now and the vision we have of the future, that big sort of, almost endless, quote unquote, pit, like the chasm to get over. I call that the gap, because there are times when we're really focused on where we're headed, and there are times we're really focused on where we are now, and then there are times we're really focused on that gap. And when that internal negative, self-talk, whatever, is on loudspeaker, mostly I think we're just present to the gap. And so what I say you can do is you shift instead of being focused out there on the future, which can be overwhelming, or in the gap. Instead, be focused on what is so right now. So what do you have? And I've heard people say, well, fake it till you make it. And I'm a big proponent of not doing that.
I could not agree more.
I'm like, faking it till you make it. Like, your body's not stupid. Your body knows if you're faking it. Don't fake it. Find just one thing. Find one genuine thing that you're grateful for. Just one thing. One person that you love completely without pause. One place where you feel most at peace. One activity where it just feeds your spirit or lifts your soul, whatever that is. You know, for some people, for me, I love music. And so no matter what's happening circumstantially in life, I can either listen to music and or play. I've been playing guitar for a long time, or pick up my guitar and start playing and singing. And that really shifts the energy in a moment, because I'm focusing, instead of focusing on the gap or focusing on how far away this vision I have is, I focus on what's so right in front of me right now in the moment. And I have found for myself very specifically that works wonders, because it's something Sonia Choquette, another very well-known psychic, global psychic, says in her book Ask Your Guides. She talks about feeding your spirit. And I tell people that if you want to get out of negative self-talk, likely your first place to start is to discover what feeds your spirit. So for me, that's for you, I think, like what you said, you walked up to the top of the, probably Haleakala or whatever, the volcano, and you're like, listen up, Pele, you better fix this right now.
Not everything's like me. I have to accept that, but that's how I live my life. So, that was hard for me.
I think that, it's about what your self-expression is, right? Like
Hello? Hello? I seem to have lost Shoshanna. Just bear with me a second. I will bring her again. Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hi. I'm sorry. I lost you there for a few seconds.
Yeah, we sure did. That's all right. So what I was saying is that I had this client who was married and really unhappy. And there was the stuff that and this happens probably for many of your listeners and people who listen to this afterwards, sometimes it's not just our own internal negative self-talk, it's stuff that other people have said.
Yeah.
So she was both battling her own negative self-talk, which is, conversation like, what are you doing, stupid, you don't know what you're doing, and then her husband's stuff, which was something like, you're no good, whatever. And so she had doubly had to overcome those negative self-talk. So we just began the process of discovering for the first time, and probably for her, she was 50, in 25, 30 years, what made her feel joy. Because her life had not been focused on joy for such a long time. And it was very simple things. So for her, one thing that she really, absolutely loved is gardening. But if you live in where I'm from in the U.S., in Colorado, our growing season is about 6 months because it snows. We're at a mile-high altitude.
Oh, okay.
And so it made it sort of challenging for her to garden. For her, that was a real way for her to get her hands in the dirt. It was a way to feed her spirit and sort of make louder the other voices in her head, like, you're worthy and you make things grow and look at the life you create and all that kind of stuff. So she went and bought, in our town, we have this really cool botanical gardens that has a very large inside orchid garden and tropical garden. And she went and bought a membership, and then she went, and once a week, without fail, she would go and find a spot sort of in the tropical ferns. You can just imagine it, right? The ferns and the palm trees and the orchids, and sit in there and breathe deeply and just connect to the smell of earth. And then she eventually found a way to volunteer for the botanical gardens because it was so fed her spirit that it gave her the opportunity to feel like her life was had direction and she felt connected to earth. For her, that fed her spirit. I'm happy to say that, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago. I'm happy to say that she now left her husband and moved into a fabulous apartment not like huge, but just an apartment that she loved and that she felt comfortable in, and started volunteering a whole bunch, and then looked for a way to grow all time, all no matter what the season was, she was growing things in her kitchen and like that. And whatever that is for whomever's listening, whatever that is for you, and if you don't know what that is, then that's part of, I think, the discovery. There's like this discovery of what brings you joy. If people go to simplespirit.com/blog, I just wrote an article about debunking the myths of self-care, and that's actually exactly what we're talking about, which is how do you find a way to feed your spirit, because in doing that, it will actually have it be way louder. The voices of satisfaction, joy, peace, fulfillment, way, way louder than the voices of negative talk, whether they're coming from within you or outside of you.
That's invaluable advice. I think that's really, I'm glad I've heard that myself, and I think it's really, helpful. Especially, I always think for people that are starting out on the spiritual path or starting out finding, out who they were. I mean, for me, it was I had to write 3 things that I was grateful for. This is when I got sober 7 years ago. This is one of the things they taught me in the treatment center, and boy, was I ungrateful. There were nights I would sit there going, I can't think of one. So I'd write down, I'm grateful that I'm alive. I'm grateful that and I wasn't at all. I was really petulant and angry. I didn't want to be a recovering alcoholic. But, okay, that's fine. Alcoholics tend to be angry people. I was. But yeah, today, oh my gosh, how different is that? I'm thrilled that you're on my show. I'm so grateful to be having this conversation. I'm grateful for the clothes I'm sitting in. I'm grateful for the house I live in. I'm ridiculously grateful. But it did take quite a long time. I'm quite stubborn, I think. And it took me a long time to go from actually I'm pissed off that I haven't got this to, oh my gosh, aren't I lucky that I've got this? It did take me a while, but oh wow, life is so colourful since I took off that miserable hat that I was wearing, or whatever it was, and the miserable mask, and you start looking at life differently, don't you? And you start seeing things which before you were so fixated, I'm talking about me, I was so fixated on my own misery and pain and depression and all the horrible things that I didn't see the world around me. I just didn't see it. And especially I find when I'm talking with the angels, which, that's what I do. I'm an angel reader, and I ask your angels questions. And everything they show me is so colourful. And sometimes they'll show it to me as really black and white, and I know that the person I'm reading for is, suffering from depression or illness or something like that. And then they open a door and there's real colour, and I love that vision they've given me, because it really helped to secure in my mind that actually when I'm looking at the world with awe and wonder, it's an amazing place. When I'm looking at it through, God, I'm miserable and I hate everybody, and it's black and it can be really cruel, So yeah, I think it's a massive shift of perception, but I wouldn't change my journey for anything, because I'm so grateful to have been that miserable so-and-so, because now I can really help people that don't understand that they're really, in pain or miserable. And I can see it really clearly because I've been there. I don't know. My opinion is, Shoshanna, that a lot of people who are psychic tend to have not had a really easy ticket. Would that be your experience?
Yeah, I would think that people who choose to do what we do in life, which is, be healers, be guides, be readers, be a teacher, like I'm a teacher of other people, that I think that I don't know if we've had a harder time than other people necessarily. I don't know if that's true for me, but certainly everybody's had hardship, and I would say that maybe more than others, we're really present to the path that we've been on. Like we would, like all the things that have happened to us, that each one carved who we are and what we've chosen to do.
Yes. And I definitely look back at my past and think, I can do what I do today because I went through that, or because I learned that lesson, or because, my parents were this way or that way, and, those boyfriends were this way. You know what I mean? I'm really grateful. I'm even grateful for what happened to me to bring me to here. And today, or yesterday rather, Bob Geldof's daughter died. She was, I don't know if you heard about that in the States, but anyway, she's 25 and they don't know why she's died. And it's tragic because her mother obviously took an overdose 13, 14 years ago. But when I saw that, it selfishly made me think, good Lord, okay, so I'm, nearly 50 now, and I've lived a really good life in some respects and a really hard life in others, but okay, what am I going to do with today? How can I make today count, because I am actually still here? And I'm really sad for her and her family, and I send them loads of love and, healing and support, and I hope the angels are with them, which I'm sure they will be. But boy, my life needs to count too, and it just really reinvigorates for me that, okay, I think everybody's come here with a mission, and even if that's, to have one child and love that child, and, that's your mission because you're learning motherhood, or I'm going to bake bread for my life and it's about feeding other people, and that's your life lesson. I mean, the life lessons come in all shapes and sizes.
They sure do.
But I'm certain that we all have one, and sometimes so many people say to me, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. Well, look, it's taken me all these years, and suddenly, since January the 30th, I now know what I'm supposed to do. I'm going to plant trees. I didn't know that last year or 10 years ago. I know it today. So I had to go through my lessons in order to get to this, and I couldn't be more sure that it's what I'm supposed to do. So, and that's really exciting. It's terrifying, but it's really exciting.
Well, and I think anybody who listens to this, I think to maybe answer your question that you asked me before in a different way, there's no way to judge whose lessons are harder or not.
No.
I think that everybody goes through a path in life that has them arrive right where they are. And if you're someone who's listening to this program, after, on YouTube or on Carolyn's website or even my website, and you feel really stuck and you're not really sure what to do, you don't really, I think that there are ways of getting out of suffering. There are ways to get unstuck, to remove barriers, to being fully expressed, kind of like what Carolyn's been talking about being able to, even if you don't know what your immediate vehicle for the fulfillment of your purposes, but getting you there step by step. So, like what we've already talked about, one, being able to practice being present, whether that's through meditation or mindful practices of, noticing what you notice around you, being able to practice being grateful. So being present to what is really, really so right now in front of you. Finding one genuine thing, or multiple if you can, but one genuine thing that you're grateful for, and expanding on that. And then ultimately being able to learn how your own special gift works and be able to practice and expand on that as well. I think that if you are somebody who, is stuck or lost or not sure what to do, both Carolyn and I do different things, but we're both really committed to people living lives that work. So I think I can speak for both of us in that, we're both here on the planet to make a difference for people. That's why she has a radio program. That's why I write blogs. And we're on different parts of the planet, but we're both really interested in people living a life that has ease and being connected to other people more profoundly and more connected to the divine more profoundly. And there are ways to do it that seem much more simple than people think, I think.
Absolutely. And, that's a really good thing to say, that effectively we're both here to help. But, if people do want to work with you, Shoshanna, where do they go? What's the best thing for them to do?
The best thing to do is to go to simplespirit.com, and then from there I have a link to my online booking calendar. I do Skype, email, and in-person readings, whatever works best for people. I also offer training and coaching programs. So, whatever support I can offer, that's the best place to start, is to book a 30 or 60-minute session with me so we can get acquainted and get you started on whatever your path is.
And I have to say, I highly recommend you. You're so accurate, and I've really enjoyed the readings that you've given me. And we did some swaps, and, it was really beneficial. So thank you so much for that. And if you want to work with Shoshanna, go to simplespirit.com. Okay, so you can find me on Facebook as Spiritual Growth Tools. If you also want to look for my page, which is called Tree Planting Holidays on Facebook, I could do with a bit of love. And Tree Vacations on Twitter, could also do with a bit of love. In any way that we can help you, just get in touch. Obviously, my website is spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk, and I'd be happy to help in any way that I can.
And she's fabulous, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we've been working together, and I have a feeling, Shoshanna, this is not the end. I think we're going to be working together in the future. I have that. Plus, I've never been to Colorado, and I really, really want to go there. So, yes, I'll invite myself at some stage.
It's an open invitation.
Thank you kindly. So to wrap it up then, if you would like to work with Shoshanna, and, I might even think about taking one of her, 6-month courses myself, because, I think she's got a lot to offer the world, then I highly recommend you go to simplespirit.com. So, Shoshanna, thank you so much for coming on. I've really enjoyed this chat with you, and I hope lots of people get in contact with you and try out your wares.
Thank you very much.
All right, honey. Well, I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Again, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No, really, the pleasure was all mine. Okay, so the next show is on April the 15th, and this show airs at 7 p.m. GMT again, and my guest will be a guy called Thornton Streeter. I'm looking forward to interviewing him, as he's a fellow body talk practitioner, but he also set up in 1998 the Center for Biofield Sciences in India, and what they're looking at is mapping the human biofield and exploring its significance in modern healthcare. I think that's going to be a really interesting show. I'm very much looking forward to asking him some questions. I really love doing this show, so thank you for listening in. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll be kept informed of all the upcoming shows that you will not want to miss. I've got some really amazing guests coming on in the very near future. And stay safe, and I hope you find the tools that you need to grow with grace this week. Love and blessings to you all.
Thank you for listening to Spiritual Growth Tools live on the radio. For more information, go to spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk.